So I'm looking at this article about Sean Penn talking about feminized men in Western society, uh, in America, but I will generalize more for Western society. Um, and a rebuttal by what Tandiwi Newton or Miss Newton. Um, I'm not sure. You know, well, it's obvious the way she responded is a natural response. That entitlement where women have this way of defining things when it suits them, but it is preposterous for a man to also define things. Um, so let's start with Mr. Penn. He talked about feminized men, and you see a lot of men in Western American men feminized, wildly feminized, and although I won't, it won't, it's although it can be viewed as though it's a blanket statement. Um, let's be real. He's not saying all men. He's obviously one of the men that thinks he's not wildly feminized. So not all men, right? So while instead of like word picking here and there with a generalization, there's an understanding that he's not talking about all men. So that should be a mute point. He's talking about men in general. Statistically, for the past couple of generations, even not my generation, but this current generation, the men in the early 20s, mid 20s, that generation, I have kids that I've raised professionally in foster care, and there are those that have, around a youth program that I'm involved with, have told me that men, they're more in touch with their emotions and things like that. They're not like us, like men like me, so they can't be that strong. And it is sad for them to say things like that, that they cannot be strong like me. In reality, they can. The problem is they weren't around a lot of men. They were raised by women, actually, but maybe two athletes that I know of grew up with both their mother and father. So and those athletes, they're not emotional like typical men. Like the typical men today. They're more um, grounded, like men in my generation and the generation before. In my professional career, raising kids, I have had I only take sibling groups, and more actually all the time these kids come from single mother households, and the actually not all. I had one family that I took on that came from a the mother was deceased, the father was still alive, but he wasn't really in the picture, type thing. Um, but in general, women, are single mothers, and they're raising men, boys, and girls, and about maybe 95% of the times, uh, it's a guess. The boys come in kind of feminized in the way that Mr. Penn is talking about. They're highly emotional. They're easily drawn to tears. They whine, about things. Not that regular men don't whine. It just has this. It's a feminine uh, way of approaching things. Um, and a lot of people in society think that is okay. A lot of women think that is okay. But they will never marry or stay with a man that is like that. That a boy that grows up with a man that's highly emotional, um, you know, really like tapped into femininity based on what he learned from his mother, a woman, or an alpha woman in particular, will not want to be with a man like that. Because why would a woman want to be with another woman when they're looking for a man? Just because he has a penis doesn't make him a man. That's as he if he's more tuned to his feminine energy. Um, and in a lot of cases, the young girls, and as I'm talking about young, like 5 years old, 4, 5, and up, they're more tapped into masculine energy. They don't cry as much. They're always alert. They're very observant. They slide completely into survival mode, um, where they're like taking care of their older brother and sisters sometimes that's a couple of years older than them. Things like that happen. Um, and they cannot revert back to being young girls, children, because their trauma is so ingrained in them, it's autonomous for them to act masculine, like how men or boys would usually act, to be the protector and provider, which is a sad thing, and it starts really young. So, for Miss Newton to really call him a gibbering fool, Mr. Penn a gibbering fool, without presenting a rebuttal or a counter argument uh, to support her point of view, she slipped into name calling. And to me, that in itself is repulsive. Not what Mr. Penn said, but the way she responded to it. And it is typical of women to do things like that. And if a man was to act like that, of course, even women would ridicule him. He's acting like a woman. So you see right off the bat from the article that women, when feel threatened, act like that. They start with name calling, they try to emasculate him, think everything, rather than to look at the information that he presented or his opinion that he presented, and then respond appropriately with an opinion and proof to back up that opinion, if necessary, to rebuttal what he has said. But instead, she went to name calling. And again, she's a black woman. We see a lot of that in the black community. I see a lot of that in the black community. A significant amount of male bashing and stuff when a young man presents himself in a traditional masculine role. Um, for some reason, black women are threatened by that, and hence the crazy statistics that's happening in marriage for black women. 1 in 4 will never marry in their entire life to anybody. Whereas what in the 60s and 70s, black community was 85% marriage. And of course, women in general are divorcing, initiating divorce like 80% of the times, because men today are not men in the sense of masculine energy. They're feminized. So a woman may say she wants these things, but when in practice, when she gets these things, nothing. They don't want that man. They end up with a jerk and the asshole that's typical of the masculinity that they so try to criticize. They end up having babies with those kind of men. They end up wanting to sleep around with those type of men. They end up in relationships with many, many of those type of men until they become old as dirt, which is mid 30s, for the sexual marketplace value. And then they want to come to a guy um, that's a little more softer around the edges and stuff and settle. But they really don't want that guy. They really want a jerk because he's more masculine, he's more assertive. And there are some really like crazy men out there. They're like mentally insane, and some of them have significant levels of insecurity and depression and stuff, and they turn to drugs and alcoholism in particular. So, and then they treat women like dirt with the abusive stuff and all the things that no man supports abuse and all that stuff. Um, but you know, men's personality are significantly suppressed in a lot of ways, and you know, a lot of times I get in arguments with some of the women around me, but at the end of the day, they come around and say, "Hey, you're right," you know, and I always stand my ground. I refuse, especially in MGTOW, to be that with the MGTOW mindset. I refuse to be that guy that, you know, always bending to the will of what a woman's opinion is on how I should be, and just be me. I'm not disrespectful to a woman. I don't abuse or neglect or any of the stuff that's associated with the craziness that women talk about, because it's not who I am. But for those of you who disagree with my opinion, by all means make a comment in the section down below so we could further discuss this matter. Was Miss Newton's response appropriate? Women, chime in as well. Look at the article, it's online, it's everywhere. And really make an honest response. Was her response an appropriate response? Is that how you respond to someone's opinion? Is that how you respond? Or do you have more to offer than just name calling? If you have any questions, ask it in the comment section down below. Like and subscribe. Y'all have a good day.